Welcome to Dad Describes. Thank you for checking out my content. We use our time together to give you my take on current events, politics, culture, and entertainment. In 2016, politicos, pundits, and pollsters were expecting a Hillary Clinton wave that would carry her into the White House. Instead, polling data was horridly wrong, and Donald Trump sunk all Clinton expectations as he easily won his bid into the presidency and sailed right into the White House. My gut then was that he would win, but I too was looking at the polls. I remember having these long conversations with some friends that I used to work with in consulting and government and saying, hey, if Trump wins, here's how it's going to happen. I was proven correct on election night, and shortly thereafter, I got a phone call saying, hey, are you interested in getting a job in Washington? I'm not a polling expert. Those are special people that have way better math skills and are a lot more patient than I am. But I have worked on a number of polls in my time in government, and I'm at least familiar with some of the methodology behind them. Polls work because they remove much of the human element and kind of gut feeling and rely on traditional trend lines of human behavior. What they don't predict well is massive cultural shifts. For example, in 2008, massive cultural shift with the election of Barack Obama. He activated people who do not vote and pulled out demographics for him in a way that is entirely unique to Barack Obama. Before we get into too much detail on that, though, let's frame out some different terms used and kind of build this cake up a little bit better. You have to watch out for this because when we look at political polls, they depend on the frame that you're looking through. They can tell you kind of completely different things. For example, in this country, we have some 350 million people, but only about 153 million people are registered to vote. In 2016, about 127 of 350 turned out and voted. So when we conduct a poll, the first thing we have to ask is, which group are we polling from? Are you polling from everybody? Because everybody doesn't vote. Are you doing a poll based on registered voters? Not all registered voters vote. So there are polls that are just random snapshots of people. So then you have polls of registered voters. Some of those people never vote. They register when they get their driver's license done, but that's it. You never see them show up at the polls. So you're going to get a better read and accuracy of a poll with registered voters, but the data can be skewed. Some likely voters only vote in presidential election years, but when you are working with them as a data set, you're on target a little bit more. So likely voters get broken into presidential election cycle and then the super voter category. Super voters vote every election. General, primary, local, state, gubernatorial, whatever. If there's something to vote on, they're there, they show up, they punch the ticket, and they're out. Polls that focus on likely voters are the ones to listen to. If you see a news outlet touting a poll and you don't see that small little blurb to the left of it saying likely voters, you can just kind of roll your eyes and forget it. You have to keep in mind that the United States is very large and varies quite differently from state to state. A state poll of likely voters in New York, which is blue, is going to look quite different than a state poll of, say, a red state like Kentucky. One state is very blue, the other is very red. At this point, I could get really wonky and go down like 50 more layers into urban versus rural, where are you polling from, demographics, age. There are so many filters to apply or rule out to a poll, and this is called, the methodology, the real fine fiddly bits in there of how it works. It's a hard job to figure out. And yes, you can put your thumb on the scales and have some bias in there, or tilt it, or make it kind of spit out kind of accurate, but a little bit skewed the way you want it results. So when we look at polling for a presidential election, where pollsters really struggle today is going back to that likely voter. Traditionally, you find them by looking at voter turnout over a couple of different election cycles and then data merging. So you might go back 2 or 3 presidential cycles, maybe 4, and kind of merge the people in or merge some out. The data sets we traditionally rely on are currently unreliable for traditional modeling. Going back to Obama, large numbers of people who don't vote turned out and voted for him. And then they disappeared until he was on the ballot again 4 years later. And then those same activated voters disappeared and didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. So when they polled for Trump, they were polling Obama-only voters that were at this point deactivated. However, Trump had activated his own base of new voters that couldn't be polled with any sort of reliability. And when combined impact of Obama voters staying at home and new Trump voters showing up, you get the Trump landslide. So going into 2020, we have 2 very different data sets of voters we would traditionally roll into the same likely voter category. However, the Obama data set were Obama-only voters. This could explain the Democrats' deep dive to the left and grasping at the straw man of Biden to try and reactivate that Obama base. I only call Biden the straw man because no matter how you repackage him, he is not Obama, and he does not have that lightning in the bottle of charisma and charm needed to activate those people. He's just not Obama. It's nothing against Biden, but when you're Obama, you're Obama. And when you're Biden, you're Biden. The other major problem with polling is that technology has changed. We are not a landline-based civilization anymore. Everybody's using cell phones. So where you would traditionally get called on your landline to respond to polls, it's not happening as much anymore. So it's getting harder and harder for them to find people to actually survey. My personal gut is we're going to have a massive red wave election, but I could be wrong. Almost everyone was wrong in 2016. I just happen to have some understanding of why it might happen. I'm not an expert, but if you are, please, feel free to comment down below. Maybe you have some insight I'm missing or a more, accurate piece of the puzzle. Feel free to chime in. I'd love to learn something. This year, 2020, has been crazy land so far. I highly doubt we're going to get an election night returns with a declared winner. It's not going to happen. I think what is more likely is we're going to see weeks to months, possibly, of a contested election results, with people on both sides of the political spectrum saying, yeah, I don't trust your results at all, and it's shady, and I'm throwing the shenanigans flag. And that's a scary thing. And I think we're just all ready to move past 2020. So if you'd like to move past this 2020 garbage, let me know by smashing that like button at the bottom of the page and consider subscribing. Remember, nobody listens to Dad till they're crying in the corner trying to figure out why Hillary Clinton didn't win election. But don't just take my word for it. Go out and educate yourself. Expand your worldview. Learn something new. I doubt I have all of the answers or insights on all of the layers that explain how messed up polling is right now. Looking at the polls today, seeing that the race is tightening up in a bunch of battleground states, it just, to me, Hillary was a lot farther ahead in the polls than Biden is right now. And the fact that Trump is competitive in an environment where, the media is just orange man bad and kind of has their finger possibly on some of those polls, a little bit of bias. I think this red wave it's coming, baby.